or welcome. In today's session, what we're trying to discuss is issues pertaining to the contracts. So, by nature, when we talk about a contract, what are we talking about? A contract is an agreement that has been made between the employer and the employee. So, that's in the employment setup. But a contract is an agreement that's there between two or three individuals, between organizations, or amongst different groups of people. So what we need to appreciate is that in a contract, there are certain things that have to be achieved at the end of the contract. So could be obligations of one party in the contract and also obligations of one party in the contract. For example, in an employment contract, uh, you could have a situation whereby someone has to do the work, then someone has to pay the payments to such kind of an employee. But also in a business contract, you can have someone has to supply some items, and another person has to pay that particular supplier. So what we're saying is a contract could be in employment, could be in business, anything. You can ask someone to do some work for you. So whatever you have is a contract because there's an agreement and there's an obligation that the one party has to do, and also there's also an obligation that the other party has also to carry out. So whenever we are talking about these things, that's what we mean when we talk about a contract. So in a normal setup, um, if we go to the employment law, for example, in Malawi, there are about three types of contracts which are recognized in Malawi. So the first contract is what we call the contract for a specific task. So in this particular contract is whereby you can ask someone to do a specific job, and once that job has been completed, the employer has to pay that particular employee. For example, you can ask someone to clear certain bush. Yeah. So once that bush is cleared, there is no other obligation that the employee has also to do, or maybe there is no other obligation that the employer is expected the employee to undertake. Then he has to pay that particular amount. In the absence of that particular employee doing that particular task, then the employer is not obliged to pay such kind of an employee. So the contract, even in that sense, it ends at the time when the bush has been cleared. So once that has been done, the contract will come to an end. There's no need for notice for whatever, because the contract will come to an end at the completion of the task or at the end of the task. So that's what we call the contract for specific task. And some can agree the payment to be monthly, some can agree to say okay, they can just charge to say for you to complete this particular task, for me to complete this particular task, you have to pay me so much, or for you to complete this particular task, I'll pay you so much. So that's what is agreeable. But at the end of the day, whether verbal or written, what we need to appreciate is contract, because contract can be also implied. So a contract is a contract regardless whether it's written or not, because there is also oral contract or implied contract. As long as the person, there were certain obligations that the particular person was undertaking or is supposed to undertake, we assume that there is a contract. And the second contract, which also we need to be appreciated, is a specified period contract. So the specified period is like you can give each other to say, no, for me, I've got some job which I want you to do, and I'll give you maybe um, 6 months for you to complete this job, or 1 year, or 2 years, or 5 years. So that's a contract for specified period of time. So you have assumed that by the end of that period, that job will come to an end. Or sometimes it's not like that job will come to an end, but you want that particular person to work for a certain period for sake of assessment and all that. But if you are convinced with the performance, you might also add on more years or more months to that contract so that they can continue working. Even some people can work for 10 years on an annual contract. So it means their performance is good. They can continue working with the organization. So they subsequently be offered new contracts. And one thing that we should be appreciative of in this contract, because it's always a problematic in these contracts, is that there's nothing like contract renewal. Yeah, we don't have to renew a contract, or contracts are not renewed. But what happens actually is that when a contract has come to an end, a new offer is made to the employee. A new offer is made to the employee. So that's what we need to appreciate, that when a contract has come to an end, a new offer is made to the employee, and not necessarily a contract is renewed, because there's nothing like contract renewal in contracts. Why do we avoid contracts renewal? Because there is always what we call the legitimate expectation on part of the employee. So you remove that legitimate expectation by just having a contract with an end date. Yeah. So another challenge is that certain people tend to also continue working or after the contract has come to an end. So when the contract has come to an end, so whether the job is there or not, they are supposed to stop working. But the company can be proactive, maybe 3 months before the end of the contract, to offer a new contract. So it's up to the employee to decide to accept that particular contract or to reject that particular. So it's an offer that you are making. But why should you do maybe 6 months or 3 months before? In the event that that employee has refused, you can now advertise, so that when the contract is coming to an end, another person can come in and fill that particular position. And the other problem, what also that tend to happen, is that the people will relate to funds, for example, to say this contract is can be terminated subject to availability of funds. So funds have not been affected, and now you're saying we are terminating your service because funds, we don't have the funds. And this person whom you recruited has got inside information in terms of performance of the company, of the organization, in terms of the funding levels, and is sure that the funds haven't been affected. So you find that it's always problematic to convince this particular person to say we have run out of funds, or funds are not all that good. So I think you should also avoid relating to funds. I think termination can always happen any time, and the reasons can be provided at that particular time. So providing that reason in the contract may not be helpful, but at the end of the day, you can still terminate when the funds are not available. It's normal for a company to go through troubles, and you can communicate to the employee, whether through retrenchment or other means, but you can be able to terminate. And also sometimes the other challenge that will tend to happen is that we relate the contract to performance. So you might find that an employee who has performed, we have we didn't do the assessment, but he has performed. All the KPIs that we had agreed at the start of the contract have been achieved, and now we are terminating the contract, or we're not giving out a new contract to this particular person, yeah, just because of other reasons. But we are now trying to say it's because of performance, and you wanted to say, how can you relate this to performance? Yet I've performed what I was supposed to do, I've done it. So sometimes relating a contract to performance, it is good when you have proper mechanisms for assessing performance. Not just setting it, but you need to assess the performance and be able to conclude to say, no, we have all the parameters for assessing performance, and the performance assessments have to be done. It happens sometimes that the contract, someone has performed, but maybe there are other reasons which have led you not to give a new contract. So it's also problematic when you have linked performance to contracts, to offer of new contracts. So you might find that you are in a quagmire where you don't want to offer a new contract to this person, but now, because you are referred to performance, that this person has performed, and you find that it's always problematic. And at the same time, I think there are also biases when it comes to performance. You might have people who have not, whom are failing to assess other employees because they are leniency. Because of leniency, I think we read that in another video where we're discussing issues of performance. to say because of the rainiest, you might have people who are scoring each other highly, but you feel that these people have not performed. And also, I think the other problem that also tend to happen is that um, you want to avoid a situation whereby there's some bit of uniformity with other people. For example, it happens sometimes that you have three managers, three directors, three, four, five employees who are on a contract, the same terms and the same things. So you expect that the treatment should be the same, but you might have to decide to say you're terminating a contract of one person, or you're not offering a new contract one person, yet the rest of the people you're offering new contracts, for example. Yeah. So I think whenever you are dealing with contracts, it's so important to have uniformity when you are applying the various regulations that you have as an organization. I think there was a case of Mrs. Alice Konyan and the MRI, Mara Revenue Authority, I think at one point in time, whereby Mrs. Alex Kunyan had to sue Mara Revenue Authority for not adhering to contracts, whereby her contracting, he was not offered a new contract, yet he had performed. She had performed. She was not offered a new contract, yet she had performed. So the question was to say, how come I have not been given a new contract, yet I performed, my scores were high, and now it's difficult for you to not to offer a new contract. Yet the rest of the fellow members of staff who had the same conditions were offered a new contract. So that's also a very big problem in most contracts. So it's also an important aspect for us to appreciate, to say whenever you are offering new contracts, make sure that you are making it uniform to all people. If you are using performance as a parameter for not renewing, or for renewing, or for offering a new contract, or for not offering a new contract, then you should use the same basis for each and every person. And also, one thing that you need to be appreciative is that contracts under specific task and also specified period. I think you can terminate such kind of contracts in light of Section 28 of the Employment Act 2 and 4, Section 8 of the, because it says that when your contract has come to an end, you can terminate, or when the job that was being done has come to an end, you can also terminate. But now, there comes another contract, which is very, very confusing to many people. It's contract for unspecified period. So some people would refer to this one as a permanent contract, whereby now one can work out retirement, or can be terminated upon death, resignation, retirement, or either termination or dismissal, where say someone has misbehaved and that now you terminate, or you change, or you make it redundant. Then that's the reason why you can be able to terminate that particular contract. But at the end of the day, what we should appreciate is that the contract for unspecified period, someone can make up to retirement. And in this contract, this is what people mostly refer to as permanent contract. But what I need to appreciate is that this contract is a contract for specified unspecified period. Yeah, and not specifically contract. I should also mention here to say there's also another contract which we refer to as temporary employment contract. But for this one, what we need to appreciate is that this particular contract is not by law temporary. So we see a lot of adverts and all that where people are looking for temporary employees. I think we should be mindful of the fact to say we don't have a contract in the employment law which we call temporary employment contract. So what you need to do is, whenever you want to recruit someone on a temporary basis, I don't know whatever it means, but for a short period of time, for example, whether 1 year, you can indicate whether that contract is for a specific task, because someone can come just to do data entry. That's a specific task that someone is coming for. So after the entry of the data, when the data is finished, then that contract will come to an end. So that contract is for specific task. Or you can have someone when you want to avoid using a contract for a temporary employment, you can regard it as a contract for a specified period. So you can have like 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Yeah, that contract now you have it like for that period, and people conclude to say this period now is why a contract for specified period. So when you have such kind of a contract, you find that it's for, let's say, 1 year, yeah, or for 2 years, or for 6 months, or for 1 month. It means that's a contract for specified period. You have specified the period to say the contract is for a certain period of time. So that's what I'm trying to say that's contract for either a specific task or a specified period. But we don't have like contract for or a temporary employment contract. I think this is what we need to appreciate. So whenever we're advertising, recruitment for data entry for a specific task, or recruitment for data entry for a specified period. So that's what we should be able to appreciate. Or even you can just say data entry creates period, then you can indicate the period. Yeah, then you can indicate the period, but not specifically mentioning to say you are a temporary. And also what we need to appreciate is under temporary, whatever we call temporary employment contracts, it's difficult for you to sometimes you avoid issues like pension, we avoid putting them on the medical scheme, on other benefits and all that. Yet these are our employees. So to avoid that, it's important to have them on a specific task or specified period and place them on pension and also on what other facilities that other people are benefiting from the organization. Could be transport, could be medical aid and other things. So that's what we need to appreciate when we talk about employment contracts. So there are 3 types of contracts: contract for specific task, contract for specified period, and contract for unspecified period. So whatever the kind of recruitment that we want to do, we should be looking at to say, is it falling in any of these? So if it is falling, you name it accordingly, but not saying, no, this one is temporary employment. I think we should be able to avoid that. So that's what is important for us to appreciate. And I would like to thank you all for watching this video. Watch many other videos which are in this YouTube channel. You'll be able to enjoy them. We're talking about issues performance management. We're talking about how do you do recruitments, how do you do training, among other things. So I hope you look out for other videos in the future. I just want to thank you for watching this video. Thank you.